Hey everyone, Joseph here. I go by Audi Snapper on the forums. Today I wanted to give you a little bit of an update on my custom RC trophy truck that I built last year. You know what? I'm realizing now that this is probably not the appropriate shirt for this video. Hang on one second. Whoa, all right. That's better, a little bit more appropriate. It's been a while since I put some content on YouTube. You know, I haven't done any of the running videos, and I haven't done anything recent as far as build process or changes to the truck. It's more or less the same as you know, I originally built it, for good or for bad. You know, it's running strong. Everything's still solid on it. I think I've gotten to that point though where in order to get back out there, I want to tear the truck apart, media blast the chassis, showing lots of surface rust and, you know, just a ton of dirt and junk on there. I thought that maybe, you know, once I add some of the pieces to the chassis that were part of the original design, you know, I could media blast it and paint it. There's a good product out there, or at least I think it's a good product. I see it on Instagram all the time. The one-to-one trophy truck guys are using it to spray their chassis. I forget the name of it, but it looks like a decent product. I thought maybe I'd buy a spray can and shoot the chassis after I media blast it. You know, maybe it's time to get a new body. I don't know if you guys can see it in the background there, but you know, it's pretty beat up. You know, some of the plastic's torn, but you know, for the most part, it's actually held up really well considering how much I beat on it. But you know, I get a little tired of the look, and it might be time for something new. Next step in the process is I'm going to tear this all apart, and I'll show you guys that process and give you a little bit more insight and detail on how I built this truck. If you guys have any questions, be sure to post the questions in the comments below. As always, you know, I'll leave links to all of my to the build thread and to all the parts and pieces that I've used to put this truck together. And hopefully soon we'll have some more content, some more cool videos with some good slow motion action to show you guys. All right, so let's go over to the workbench and we'll take this thing apart and, you know, start stripping it down. And as I go through, if there's anything that I can think of that's a little unique, maybe I'll share that with you. And if you guys have any questions, again, you know, post in the comment section below. All right. Let's get to it. So one of the things that I think I'd like to change, I'm not sure I'm going to do it now, but it's always kind of bothered me since I built this truck, was the body mounting points. They were kind of an afterthought, although it's worked out really well. The only one that's kind of failed me is this guy right here. It busted. This one, looks like I don't have the body pin there. But I've got some Velcro on this side, which has kept it really tight. And one of the big things for me was trying to keep the body really kind of tight to the chassis, so that it didn't flop around during the slow motion, you know, video. Just gonna give you guys an idea what I've been doing. So I've been using Gorilla Tape for all the mounting points and some of the, you know, areas that take a lot of abuse. You know, a lot of rubbing areas. It's worked out really well. Kind of see that for all the mounting points, for all the points that end up touching the chassis, which I got those little Nerf bars that go right here. And then of course, you know, the top of the cage hits, you know, on this part, and you know, the front takes quite a bit of abuse. So as you can see, it's starting to show its age. You know, everybody that's dealt with RC bodies is familiar with this, so nothing new. But my Peter Griffin's looking a little worse for wear. Got some tears back here. It's actually really thin back here versus, compared to all of the other areas. So it's not surprising that it's kind of torn in these areas. I have a dedicated track car, a real one-to-one track car. And one of the things that I've learned over the years is that when you're pulling things apart, it's always good to put the screw into the hole where it belongs. It's just kind of easier to find, where it needs to go and how to put it back together. But I gotta say, man, I still, to this day, let's see if I can center this. When I dropped it, this is 18 inches off the tabletop, and it's so plush. I love this thing. I love how this thing settles. Check out my other videos if you haven't already. So this is all one piece of ABS, scored ABS. So here's what I was talking about in my kind of intro. You guys look closely, there's lots of surface rust there. Those are the areas that just kind of get hidden by the metal panels. I think it's about time I media blast this sucker. I don't know how many of you guys followed me on my my build thread, but this was for those of you that don't know, this is a 3D printed, custom designed specifically for my truck, based on the Camberg Racing light bar, rear light bar. So basically this is a solid piece. I custom designed and had cut this 3D piece to work with. I guess these are probably axial score, axial Yeti style light lenses, and I bought some cheap 3D, or I'm sorry, some cheap LED lights, and you guys can see. Let me turn this so you get a better view. It's backwards. Just kind of stuffed everything in there and glued it in, hot glue, the little lead sticking out. It's not pretty when you see what's going on underneath, but you can, once it's mounted on the truck, obviously you can't see any of that, and it's all good to go. And it's out. All one piece. It came black. I forget. I think it was when I had it printed. I had it printed in black, and I actually did the airbrushing. So I tape masked this off, and then just did the airbrushing. So these little guys are supposed to kind of illustrate that punched metal look, and yeah, it's held up pretty well. Just need to wash it and get it back together. If you haven't seen my video on my front brakes, please take a look. I'll link it, let's see, up there. Sorry, phone's ringing. So that hex should align with the hex of the rotor, and you can see that it's rotated 10 degrees or whatever that is, and it's now mashed into that little spacer that I 3D printed. So that's interesting. It's informative. So if anybody's been curious and who's been following this build, this skid plate literally came from my one-to-one track car. We had a dash panel that was all aluminum, and I still have remnants of it floating around, but it says lights right here, and that was the light switch on the dash panel for the race car. So one technique, if you don't remember how to put it back together, take a picture. Got a lot of different little spacers in here, and I know that I'm going to forget how they all go together. So. The premise of this truck was to be built from all of the parts that I could use from the Nitro TC3 on-road car. You know, the radio chassis, which is still here. I had the whole drivetrain and Nitro engine from that same setup. I have the same transmission, which was linked to the front diff box, which is all, again, it's from that on-road Nitro TC3 car. And the arms, everything is as much as possible was to kind of repurpose that car into this trophy truck, because we weren't using the car. I've had the car for 20 years now or whatever it is, and although I've run it over the years, I'll get it back and I'll get it running and I'll go out and I'll drive it up and down the street, but just the road conditions, there's no on-road tracks around here that really do nitro cars anymore. And you could go to a parking lot and just do a bunch of donuts, but there's no tracks, there's no real challenge. So the idea was to tear that apart and use as many components as I could to help not only kind of build something unique, but to keep costs down. That was a real big factor. And I got to share with you guys, I failed miserably at cost. Although I reused a lot of the parts, the front diff is still here, the front arms are still here, a lot of that is still here. This truck still cost me a fortune, and I won't go into details, but buying every little nut and bolt that I needed, and I wasn't shy about buying exactly what I wanted and what I needed. So my battery tray, it's kind of hard to see, but my battery tray is zip tied to the chassis. I never created a legitimate battery tray. I took this out of the Axial Yeti bag, and it's just worked. So when I was building my front brakes, one of the things that I did is I studied very closely how the A scale buggies did their adjustments. And so it took me a while, but I ended up using, this is like a bulkhead from the Nitro TC3 that I cut in half. It was like this wide, and I shortened, and I drilled it out, and I tapped the holes. That holes are actually tapped in there. I don't know if you guys can see that. And I threaded these little guys in here, but trying to figure out what to put here was the struggle. And what I ended up using, this is a bleeder screw, bleeder screw from a real size, full size 1-to-1 car that doesn't have a hole in it. So I actually drilled a hole through it, and it's got a couple different sizes in there. So it's got a larger hole for the cable sheathing to seat in, and then the hole for the cable to come through. So I actually had to create that in order to get it to work. Everything. The whole thing.
Dad!
Tearing it all apart.
Why?
Because it needs to come apart.
Jeez.
I'm gonna clean up the chassis, and I'm gonna paint it so that it's not rusting anymore.
This?
Yeah, see, it's got all that rust on it. I don't like the rust. Wave to the camera. Come over here. Say hi. Oh, you know what? Doing this all wrong. Sorry, guys. Not my first time. There's a reason I don't have a vertical piece here. Ta-da! So for those of you who are trying to build your first trophy truck, it seems like the most popular way is to build a plate, or create a plate that you have mounting points for your rear trailing arms, and I guess so the plate would do something like this. Obviously that's way easier to build and rebuild the truck, because all of those components stay on that plate and you can just pull the cage apart. This is one big cage. So you've probably seen it in my other videos, but this is one solid cage. There is only one area, which is right in here, where these things are bolted together. And I'll be honest with you, I'm not even sure why I did that. I think I created these bulkheads so that if I needed to replace anything, I could. These metal plates, like this one's bent. You can actually see it. It's taken a pretty hard hit. So I don't even know if I could take that apart. But, you know, hey, whatever. This is what it is. Let's take out these last two screws. There you have it, guys. Full cage. Oh, I wanted to show you guys the two pieces that are missing. So one of the concerns I had after beating on this for a while is I was worried that this bar here was starting to get pushed back. And it's hard to say. I'm pretty sure that's straight, but let's see, do I have anything that's use? It's still pretty straight. But the pieces that the two pieces that I never put in were these triangulated pieces. I guess it would go from, not sure, what is this? It would go from here to here. You see that all right? And then from there to there. So the whole point, my understanding, and this is, you know, I'm not an expert at this, but studying the cages and chassis that are built, you know, by the one-to-one trophy truck guys, is that you need to triangulate wherever you can. Anyway, the idea is that when I take a really hard hit up front, especially on the bumper, that hit is going to get translated into this point, which is going to go back to here, which is going to go back to here, and at this point there's nothing to pick up that load. So essentially this piece could just bend. This all could get pushed back if I get hit hard enough. Maybe I hit something here with a rock and it all just gets pushed back. So the idea is that if you triangulate enough, that point is going to go to here, it's going to go to here, which is going to go to here, which is going to go to there, and ultimately that point should be triangulated to there, and that point, and so forth and so on. So that's the idea behind the triangulation on the cages. I don't know how critical it is for these trucks. I mean, this thing obviously is pretty robust. I mean, it's not, you know, I mean, I don't know how to tell you guys. The ones that have built these themselves know these things are solid. And again, this was brazed, not welded. You know, the joints probably aren't as pretty as the welded joints, you know, but you guys can see these, you know, but you know, they haven't failed. You know, they are strong as all get up. So what's the next step? The next step really should be welding or brazing these two pieces in, and then figuring out if I want to redo the front bumper. You know, I was thinking of coming off here. Let's see, where's that bar at? Coming off here and here, and having another crossbar here to kind of give that double bumper look that everybody's been doing. So it'll come here to here, here to here, and then probably down. We'll see what happens. And then once those are welded, because those joints are pretty ugly when they're brazed. I keep saying welded, but when they're brazed, they discolor and so forth. So once they're brazed, you actually can see here. Let's see all this white here. Can you see that? All that white. That's what happens when you braze. It kind of just corrodes the metal. So you want to media blast it. So I'll add those pieces, then I'll media blast it, then I'll paint it, and then I'll put it back together. Got to rebuild all the shocks, get everything kind of back to where it was. So all right, guys, I'm sure this video is probably incredibly long. For those of you that have kind of stuck it out, I appreciate you watching. Give me a thumbs up. You know, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. You know, I'll be posting more content as soon as I get this thing prepped. Maybe the next one that the next video that I do is a little tutorial on how I braze and how I make these pieces. And then after that, you know, I'll maybe even go through the media blasting cardboard cabinet that I created. Try to give you guys some pointers on how I did all of that, and then just we'll put it all back together. So thanks for watching, guys. Again, if you haven't subscribed, please do. Give me a thumbs up. If you don't like it, give me a thumbs down, you know, and let me know in the comments, you know, what I could do differently and what I could do better. You know, this is not a perfect science. This is just something that I've been doing as a hobby. I don't do it as much as some of the other guys on YouTube, but when I do get into it, I do really enjoy it. And you know, all right, everybody, take it easy, and until the next video.